I'm Brad Rubendale. I'm the executive director of SAME Café, and we are a participation-based restaurant here in Colorado that has been around for over 14 years now. We're about 14 and a half years old. And we were founded by a couple named Brad and Libby Berkey, who are also on this call that you'll get to meet shortly. And they had a history. They've been working in soup kitchens and food pantries and food justice organizations. And while they loved those organizations, they also wanted to address two big issues that were happening at the time. One is that there weren't as many healthy options in those places as we would have liked. Now, thankfully, that's changed a lot in the last 14 years for the better, but they were trying to address the healthy food option problem. And then the second is there's often a feeling of a lack of dignity in those places, which again is changing, but they wanted to have everybody to have a fully dignified food experience when they walk into a place where they need food. And so they started this place with this donation-based idea, pay what you can, and everyone thought they were absolutely crazy and that it may last for 6 months or so. And actually it's been 14 years and we have inspired a bunch of other restaurants to try this model in their own communities. And now for the first time, we are actually replicating our exact model in new communities around the country, starting with Toledo, Ohio. So I wanted to give you a quick tour of SAME Café. So I'm in the restaurant right now, and when you walk in, you see this mural right here, which if you're not familiar, Colorado is a square. So this is actually a map of Colorado too. And it has little hearts that tell all of the places that give us produce and food for us to serve here. We actually are a restaurant and we have restaurant level ingredients, and we get farms and gardens who grow beautiful produce for us that are the heart of every single meal that we serve. So you come in and then you order off of our menu, which changes every day. It's on these little signs. It changes every single day based on what is in season and in stock. Because first of all, if you're eating this food every single day, you don't want to just choose off of the same 6 things each time. You want to be able to have variety each day as you're eating. So we allow people to choose off of the menu, and choice is one of those privileges that comes with money usually. And we want to be able to provide everyone who walks in the door with a choice of what they want to eat, to say, I don't like that flavor, I want something different. And we want to give people that privilege of being able to choose that. And then the second way that we provide choice is instead of prices, we have this as our participation board, which shows that people can volunteer half an hour in exchange for their meal. They can donate what they can. And we don't have suggested pricing, but we do have a transparent budget so people can determine what's a fair donation for them. And then, or they can give produce in exchange for a meal. So you can donate time, money, or produce in exchange for a meal. And then here is where you get your beautifully plated meal. And then of course, right now we have socially spaced tables and during COVID times, but usually this is filled with tables and people that are eating delicious food here in the restaurant. Currently, we've expanded our outdoor dining so that with heaters so that people can sit outside in a safer way. And I wanted to tell you just a couple of quick stories well, first of all, I also wanted to introduce Tisha. So myself and Tisha, she's the chef and operations officer of the organization. And her name is Letitia Steele. So you'll see her on here as well. But we have taken over from the Berkeys about 4 years ago. And Tisha has 30 years of experience in the kitchen and has elevated the food to be the actual best food I've ever had. I didn't get to eat much of the Berkeys food. It was also really great. But the food is phenomenal now. It's ruined me for going out to eat because I'll go pay for a meal and it's nowhere near as good as what I had for lunch that day. And then my background is in nonprofit management. And I actually was homeless myself briefly and came to SAME Café as a guest because I had lost access to healthy food. And then about 4 years ago, I had this beautiful full circle moment where I got to take over this incredible organization that helped me at my darkest time. So I just wanted to tell you a couple of quick stories. First of all, in my first 6 months as executive director here, I was talking with, we have a wealthy donor who, when she's in town, she volunteers here in the kitchen, and she's amazing. And one of our refrigerators went out, and she actually said, well, we were going to get a refurbished one. And she said, no, I'm going to buy you a new one because this place is special and it's, I can afford it. So she bought a $4,000 refrigerator on the spot, which is still being used right here. And we were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's incredible. We love it. That same week, there was a young man who was living in the alleyway behind SAME Café that we called our neighbor because that's where he lived. And he would come in every day and he would wash the windows in the restaurant as his task in exchange for his meal. And I remember watching as the front desk person went up to him and said, "Your time is up. You're welcome to leave if you want to." And he was like, "Oh, no, I'm staying until these windows are perfect." So he stayed for an extra 15 minutes until they were spotless because he had extra time that he wanted to give back to this mission. And I remember thinking, what a beautiful place where a millionaire and someone who's experiencing homelessness can both contribute out of their excess. She had money, he had time to be able to make this beautiful mission happen together. And I was like, this is a place where this is special because homeless people and people with wealth can come together and contribute to it. The second story I want to tell you is, it's interesting, you know, sometimes I will get a little calendar notification that just says, hey, you know, XYZ group is going to be here in the restaurant. This was, of course, pre-COVID. But I would just show up and I didn't know who I was going to be speaking to. Usually it was there might be a church group or a volunteer group that they just wanted to hear a little bit of the history of SAME Café. Well, one morning I walked in and it was on my calendar and it was a table of 12 little second grade Latino kids. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. I don't get to hang out with kids very often. So I got to like hang out with them and they were there to volunteer. So we rolled the silverware for the day and we put that aside. And then, you know, they cleaned up and they swept and they mopped and they were all super tuned into what I was saying, which is unusual because, you know, I have some energy, but kids are not usually paying attention to me that closely. So then we opened and they went through the line and I told every kid, I said, go order something that sounds gross to you because I want you to taste it. You can throw it away after one bite if you want to, but I want you to try something new that you wouldn't normally try. So they all got their little plates and then they would try it. And one kid was like, I had chicken on pizza and it was actually really gross and I hated it. And I was like, oh, that's great. Another kid said, I had broccoli and it was really good. I liked it. So it was adventurous and it was fun. Well, then as they were leaving, there was this one little kid who had not said a word to me the entire time. And he leaned in and he said something. And I was like, what did you say? And he said, my teacher said you were poor. And I was like, well, I was poor at one point. And he was like, were you homeless? And I was like, I was homeless. And he got this big grin on his face and he walked out the door. And I turned to the teacher and I just said, you have to tell me what that was about. And she said, you didn't know this, but I had told them a little bit of your story. And each one of these kids has experienced homelessness themselves or poverty themselves. And they've been so excited to come and meet you and to see this place and to try the food. And of course, it's not hard to make me cry, but that certainly made me cry on the spot because I was like, what an amazing place where, again, I get to sometimes network with millionaires and sometimes network with little second grade kids. And I told the teacher, I was like, when he turns 18, send him to me. I want to hire that kid. So that's a little bit about SAME Café, but I also now want to show you a quick video that's our kind of promotional video that shares a little bit of the mission. And then I'll be back to introduce you to the next person.
My favorite thing to do when I'm volunteering, I enjoy contributing to the meal and just the people just being back there.
We love having you work in the back because we always need that help. So, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. I love feeding people no matter what their socioeconomic background is, but I really felt like food was starting to become more of a luxury. SAME Café offers healthy, organic, local produce and meats. We offer dignity, we offer community.
I didn't realize how much food insecurity was such a big deal until I lost my job and didn't have access to healthy food anymore. I kind of reformatted my career into nonprofit management, and now I got to take over the organization that helped me. It was this great full circle moment.
When I first started coming here, I was homeless, and I like that I can come in here, get healthy meal.
The food that we serve is our mission, and I absolutely love that because it's such a creative way to address food insecurity.
Every walk of life comes in here. May I take a picture of you?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
It's only fair, right?
A segment of our guests that are really experiencing hardship, they can come in here, get some job skills, start feeling better about themselves because they're having conversations, and that just elevates them to the point where they can start changing their life. They can get housing, they can get jobs.
I keep coming back because I feel a sense of purpose.
We're not just saying money is valuable, we're saying time is valuable. If you have access to produce, that's valuable, and no matter what money you can bring, that's valuable. We basically say to everybody who walks through our doors, what you bring to this space is valuable.
I want to next introduce you to Toledoan Steve North, who was recently just elected as the chair of the Toledo board. And he sits on the board of SAME Café here in Denver as well. But he's going to be heading the board of directors that will be overseeing SAME Café Toledo. And he has something that he'd like to share with you.
I'm really glad that we're here tonight, and it's kind of a pinch me time for me, but I'm here to tell you how we got to this point. In August of 2018, I and another friend, John Keegan, who is here with us tonight, visited Denver to meet a colleague. In preparation for our trip, I spent a little time online looking for potential places to visit, including restaurants near our Airbnb, and I stumbled into the SAME Café website. I thought it looked intriguing, and we decided to pay it a visit on our next to last day in Denver. The real thing was even better than the website, so much better that I was speechless, which is rare, as some of you know. It's even more rare to find something so completely good in every way, and we thought SAME Café was a perfect fit for Toledo. Within a few days after we returned from that trip, I arranged to meet with my brilliant friends Aaron Peterson and PK from Balanced Pan Asian Grill to ask for their feedback about the fit for SAME Café in Toledo. Their response was overwhelmingly positive, as were the responses of others soon after. We scheduled another trip to Denver that would include a meeting with SAME Café Executive Director Brad Rubendale, whom you met here on Zoom just a few minutes ago. 9 of us went on that second trip, including several who are here with us tonight: John and Julie Keegan, Mark Kwiatkowski, Caitlin Ballinger, Mitch Magditch, and Aaron and myself. Over the course of 3 days, we spent 2.5 hours with Brad, and all of us participated in both the food and the volunteer experiences of the cafe. Once again, the responses of those who participated was overwhelmingly positive, and energy and vision for SAME Café in Toledo grew. Our little group met a couple of other times, and the next April, Aaron and I presented a proposal for locating a SAME Café in Toledo. We were not interested in doing a knockoff version of it here. Rather, we wanted the real thing, a SAME Café with all of its DNA completely intact. Brad was excited about the possibilities as well, but this was going to require some thought and research, evaluation, and assessment in a variety of ways. That fall, Brad and I reconnected, and we decided to press our interests further by bringing Brad to Toledo. I told him then, you are going to come here and fall in love with our city and our people, and you'll be so compelled you won't be able to stop thinking about us. While here, Brad experienced some of the grassroots movements which share such great mission alignment with SAME Café, some of our iconic places, and most of all, he got to spend time with some of the amazing people who make up our city and make it so compelling and wonderful. He left having fallen in love with all of it. And true to my prediction, he couldn't stop thinking about Toledo, even while he was on vacation and getting engaged shortly after his visit. Brad contacted me again in early January and proposed floating the idea of SAME Café Toledo at their winter board retreat. And things were set more in motion. Over the course of the next few months, the preferred model of replication began to emerge, and the first weekend of August, 5 people came to visit Toledo. Brad came back, along with Chef and Operations Director Tisha Steele, Board Chair Chris Cook, and SAME Café founders Brad and Libby Berkey, all of whom are also with us tonight. I was a little nervous about the visit because COVID has had a profound impact on the way things happen in our city, but they each came away with personal experiences and insights into Toledo that they found compelling enough to move SAME Café board into several months of research and visioning. In November, the SAME Café board voted unanimously to move forward with a SAME Café in Toledo, and in December, they also voted unanimously to put SAME Café Toledo in the 2021 budget, and that is what has brought us to tonight.
Thank you, Steve. And yes, I got engaged and now I'm married. My husband and I just bought a house that's not too far from here. So now I get to walk to SAME Café every day. And what he just said is that SAME Café's board here, we actually voted to give $93,000 in startup funding for the SAME Café Toledo to get it up and going off the ground this year. In addition to that, we also have Chef Letitia Steele with her expertise to help develop the menu, and she's also the operations officer, so she will help us with creating the manuals that will help it run smoothly. And in addition to that, we also have 14 years of program experience, a board of directors overseeing the entire operation, and a local board that's going to be an advisory board where Steve sits as the chair. And we have founder expertise, who I'll introduce to you next. And then I'm also extremely proud to say that the Greater Toledo Community Foundation awarded us a $25,000 grant and startup funds to match our, to join our $93,000. So we are well on our way to being able to make a SAME Café Toledo happen. And then the other beautiful thing is that these folks in Toledo have been working with me and with the team here to make sure that we are documenting it so that we can continue to replicate this in other cities around the country. So I want to introduce you briefly to Brad and Libby Berkey, the incredible visionaries and the founders of SAME Café.
Hey, everybody.
Hi there. We're Libby and Brad Berkey, and we're the founders of SAME Café. We're so glad to be able to be here speaking and meeting with you all tonight, talking about one of our favorite subjects in the world. When we first started SAME Café back in 2006, it was just a single location in Denver. But throughout the years that the 12 years that we were at the helm, we often talked about expanding. You know, what would it be like if we had a second location? We loved the idea. We just didn't really know the how to do it, the where we would do it, or, you know, what it would take to get it off the ground. And so we put it on the table and we pushed it down the road. But we always just wanted to be able to expand the impact of SAME, to be able to reach out to more people whenever, in some other way. We would have loved to have multiple locations, but we just, at that time, weren't able to make it happen.
We were really excited when Brad asked us to join the trip to Toledo in 2002 with the group from Denver. And we immediately fell in love with the city. We love Toledo for a lot of reasons. A lot of the same reasons that we connected so deeply with Denver. You have an amazing community garden network, you have beautiful outdoor spaces, and you have a community of people who really care. Everywhere we went in your city, people were friendly and open. We would tell everybody about why we were there and what we were doing. And when we introduced the concept, every time we were met with real excitement and anticipation, people asking questions, and we got all kinds of interested responses. And it didn't matter who they were, if they were shop owners or parking attendants or people we just met on the street, everybody responded with excitement. And, you know, when we named SAME Café, it stands for So All May Eat, and we meant that. We never intended it to be so all of Denver may eat. And I think this is really exciting for us. We're both very proud to be here with you tonight and excited to be part of the Toledo team to watch that reality come to fruition. So we're excited to be here. We're going to stick around for the Q&A portion, and we look forward to talking more about our very favorite subject, SAME Café.
Thank you, Brad and Libby. It was big shoes like try to step into with taking over from those two, but it's been really fun to loop them back in to found the second location, which they call their grandchild. So this is their child, and their grandchild will be in Toledo. And I want to also reiterate, I fell in love with Toledo and Toledoans. It was incredible. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I've now visited 3 times, and I can't stop thinking about this incredible community. So next I'd like to introduce Mitch and Aaron. They're the other 2 of the 3 who've been like the points of this entire endeavor in Toledo. And they're gonna tell you a little more about how to participate.
Thanks, Brad. I just posted a document in the chat that outlines some of the many ways that people can participate in helping to bring SAME Café to Toledo. And so one of the first things we need to do is identify the location for the restaurant. And the Denver team has advised us to find a place that's centrally located and that that's near public transportation. And so in thinking about that, we've identified that our preferable location is in the uptown area or the downtown area of Toledo. So if you hear of anything that becomes available or hints of anything that may become available, please let us know. You can contact us at Toledo at So All May Eat, or contact us individually, but that's a key part in finding and making this a reality. And then the second thing I want to mention is that we would really like for you to spread the word about SAME Café. We want everyone to feel welcome to participate in the way that makes sense for them. That's the model, it's a participation-based organization, and we want everyone to feel invited.
Yes, and my name's Mitch. I'm glad to be here today. And if you think those are the only 2 ways you can get involved, no. There's many ways that you can be involved. One of the ways is to introduce us to especially diverse organizations that may want to contribute something. So volunteers, chefs, restaurateurs, introduce us to local and regional and national philanthropists, donate your air miles to our Denver trainers, loan SAME your rental property for when they come here to train. If you have an extra car, they would be most appreciative of that. There's other ways as well. Introduce us to regional and national people, donate to the renovations campaign, introduce us to area farmers and gardeners. These are going to be the suppliers for SAME Café. So lots and lots of ways for you to be involved, and we'll be talking more about that.
Thank you both. And now I'm going to drop the Toledo link, the soallmayeat.org/Toledo, which is a place that you can put in your email address if you're interested in joining our email updates. And you can also find that ways to participate. We will put a link to the video on that page as well. It's linked elsewhere on our website. But I wanted to just briefly touch on the participation board that we've got here. It's time, money, produce. One of the things, and I know you can't see it very well because it's backlit, but one of the things that I love is that we have guests here that are contributing a little or a lot in each of those categories. So we'll have people who will walk in and give us a half an hour of time. And yes, I saw community gardens can provide produce was one of the questions. We can take anything that has not been processed outside of the cafe. So as long as it's a whole vegetable or fruit, we can take it and process it in here. So we have folks that'll donate a half an hour of their time in exchange for a meal. And last year we had a guy who won an award for giving 500 hours of service to SAME Café. We have some folks who will donate a couple of dollars because that's what they can afford. And we have one couple who comes in 3 times a year and donates $5,000 each time they come in. So $15,000 over the year. And then we'll have one gentleman, and this is one of my favorites, he'll go to the local food bank and pick up whatever they're giving away produce wise, and then he'll bring it here and give it to us so that we can turn it into a meal, and then he gets a meal in exchange for it. But then we also have these incredible partnerships with farms and gardens where we're getting hundreds of pounds of produce in to be able to make these meals. So I love that we have folks that are giving a little and a lot in each of those categories, and we welcome all of it because you know, I've got a lot of energy. I don't have much else, but I've got energy. We have donors that have time. We have donors that have produce and donors that have money. And all of us together can kind of make this beautiful mission happen. So I wanted to say thank you. If you would like to sign up for the newsletter, you can do it through that link I did. You can also drop your name and email in the chat right now, and we'll collect those and send out it. We'll be following up with an email. And I want to tell you one more story that has just happened last month that was amazing. So, and then I'll let you all go and we'll go into Q&A. Brad and Libby, 7 years ago, there was a gentleman named Darren who came in when Brad and Libby were running it. And he was experiencing homelessness and addiction. And he came in every day and he would talk with them and he would get to know them. He would volunteer. He'd end up staying past his volunteer time. I didn't know any of this story until last month. But anyway, I get a random call from this guy named Darren that Brad and Libby had introduced me to. And he said, Brad, I have something I want to give you, but I'm bringing a reporter with me. And I was like, sure, well, anything, you know. So he comes in and I hear his story for the first time ever while he's standing out in front of the cafe telling this reporter that he got sober, he found employment, and he got housing and over the last 7 years. And he says that SAME Café was specifically responsible for this, and Brad and Libby and their investment. And he pulls out $1,000 check and he said, I pitched SAME Café to this group that I'm in and I won $1,000. And he said, I've given hundreds of hours of my time, and I'm so proud that I can finally give money to help other people who don't have money. I'm going to get choked up right now. That don't have money and don't have the resources to be able to pay for this beautiful meal. And so he handed me the $1,000 check, and by this time I'm just weeping. And we will also put a link to that video in the chat and on the website and in the email that we follow up with. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. I can't wait to spread the magic of what SAME Café is. I think everyone that's on the board, and Brad and Libby and myself and Tisha, all of us will stick around, and even Chris, who's on the call, who's the president of our board here. We're going to stay as long as we have to answer every single question that we can. But I also want to say thank you, and you're welcome to leave if you need to leave, but we'll be around for as long as it takes. Thank you so much. We'll do a round of applause. This is what we used to do at camp. So does anyone have questions? Feel free to speak up, unmute yourself and speak up, or you can type it in the chat, and whichever one of us is most appropriate, we will answer that question.
I have a question I have several, but I'm curious about your physical space and whether you have ongoing rent or ongoing investment just for the place. Or is that some sort of gift of the city, or?
So a little of both. We're in a retail spot, and so we do pay rent, but our landlord gives us about $1,000 off of what our normal rent would be. And then at the end of the year, he gets a tax letter from us for the in-kind donation portion of it. So he's able to get a tax benefit for renting it to us for less, and then we're able to get it for less than per square foot than we would be paying otherwise. So a little of both. And you said you had another question?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that for a good part of the year, you're probably not able to utilize farm produce. So I'm assuming you have to buy it in quantity, right?
Yeah.
And other ingredients. And I assume also that you're not vegetarian, since you mentioned pizza with chicken. So you're sourcing meat as well?
Yes, so we try to get as creative as possible with our sourcing of everything. We get as much meat donated as we can, and then we also preserve as much of the vegetables as we can in our basement freezers to be able to use it to bridge that the times when we're not getting all that produce in. Now, the growing season in Colorado is like 7 months, so it's a lot longer than it probably is in Toledo. And we're able to bulk that up. There's a couple of indoor gardens as well who donate a bunch of our greens. We have a creative partnership with a corporation in town who pays a nonprofit that grows greens to give us the greens. So then that organization is helping 2 nonprofits. We get the greens, they get the money, and it works out well to help us bridge those 4 or 5 months that we don't get produce. But we just get as creative as possible. And then we do have a food budget, and we try to keep everything organic and locally grown as much as possible. We don't require organic, but we do try to keep that as much as possible with natural growing methods, just because the organic to get that label is quite expensive. So we don't require that label, but we do ask for natural growing methods as much as possible and locally sourced as much as possible.
So I'm going to jump in to continue answering that question that Brad was talking about. One of the really awesome, unique things about SAME Cafe, and we've been doing this way before the wasted food movement, we try to utilize, I call it from the leaf to the root, every single part of the produce that we can possibly use. So when we are getting all of these beautiful carrots from our farms, we don't just cut off the stems and throw them away. We will use those stems to make carrot top pesto. We'll also use the skins of the carrots after we wash it and peel it. We'll use any leftover bits for our vegetable stock. Compost is always the second option. We strive to use as much of everything as we possibly can before we even think about composting. And so we will make all sorts of sauces, we'll preserve the items. And I think over the summer we got, let's see, in 2019, we got about 18,000 pounds. This past year, we got well over 20,000 pounds of produce. And we make our own salsa. We do everything in-house from scratch. We do accommodate all sorts of dietary requirements. Just because you're experiencing hardship does not mean that you do not have a medical or a religious reason, or even a personal choice reason for a diet that you might prefer to eat or need to eat. So every day we have a gluten-free option available. We have vegan options, vegetarian options. We're very conscientious about how much sodium we use. And we do have a lot of our guests that are diabetic that have to be super conscious about everything that's going into the food that we make. So nutrition is a huge aspect of what we do. And we want to make sure that it's not just delicious, but also has nutritional value.
Thank you, Tisha.
Thanks.
And it's also the best food you've ever had. I have to say it again. It's the best food I've ever had. Does someone have another
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Hey, Brad, so I just have to say, so good to see all of you. I mean, if anyone else is feeling like this is fuel for your soul, I know I am. It's just so great to see you. Aaron and Mitch and Steve, of course, Brad would fall in love with this city because you managed to gather what is in many ways the best of our city. It's impressive. Brad, when you, in your experience, and maybe, well, Libby and Brad, two Brads, if you have, could you speak to like what local government did to maybe be helpful? Like if you had a city council that cared about this project, like what could they do to be of assistance?
Yeah, I mean, when we opened in 2006, we went to our local city council person and we got them on board as much as we could. That person ate in the cafe regularly. She hosted, a couple of meet and greets with her constituents in the cafe. We tried to get in with the city and county of Denver, but being somewhat of a major municipality, it was sort of a mousetrap. Like we had a hard time getting to the right people. But we kept knocking on the doors. We kept letting them know we were here. We kept asking people to participate. It probably wasn't until year 3 that we really felt a presence from the city and county of Denver at large. But I think that was also, everyone doubted that the model would last. And so they sort of were like, well, let's just wait and see how this goes. I'm not sticking my stamp on that until I know that it's legit. I think eventually we created some amazing partnerships with the city and county, and even our state and representatives had a presence at SAME, which was pretty powerful for us.
Yeah, and it wasn't like Libby said until that third year after we'd weathered through a lot of the financial crisis of 2008 and much of 2009, and garnered some national press to the cafe that really kind of gave us our chops, and people were taking us a little more seriously. And so cafes that we have mentored throughout the past decade or so have had a little bit of a benefit because it's not such a unique thing. There's a proof of concept out there in Denver. And so they're able to point to their local city government and say, look, here it is. This is something that is possible. It can happen. And so they are able to get a little bit of assistance that way. Hope that answers your question.
I have something to add on to that real quick as well, Sam. So recently we have started partnering with the mayor's office via our food trucks. So we'll go out to different food distribution sites and make food available to the volunteers that are working. We've also had a partnership with Denver Human Services for the past 2.5 years. Again, we utilize our food truck to go out to Denver Human Services at their varying locations so that when folks are going in to get their benefits, I'm sure it's the same in Toledo, SNAP benefits are a little backed up. So people might not get their EBT card that day. What we're doing is folks can come out to the food truck and participate however they can for a meal. We've also partnered with them more during this time of COVID to cater meals and get them delivered to various hotels around the city for families that have been temporarily displaced. We've been partnering with the Denver Department of Public Health and Environment to also feed folks that we have the downtown area where they'll have a day where there's a shower, there's a laundry service, there's SAME Cafe. And so we can be there so that they can also get a meal. I also sit on the Denver Sustainable Food Policy Council, so it's helping tie us to a lot more local agencies in that way as well. And it's been really awesome to have the city government support.
And Sam, if I could, I'll just throw one other thing in from the board. One of the things that's been most critical, especially during COVID and the support of the city, is helping us through the permitting issues, the having absolute clarity in what are the new restrictions, in those types of contacts with our council people, with our mayor's office, with the Department of Health and Human Services have been absolutely critical, right? Because what we're going to do in Toledo is to do it the right way. But we want to make sure that the time that we're spending, we're getting to the right people, asking the right questions so that we can have the right processes in place so we can have a successful opening and a long, successful future ahead of us.
That's Chris Cook, the president of the So All May Eat board, for those of you that don't know. So I'm just going to scroll. Sam, does that answer your question?
It does. It's fantastic. I signed up for the newsletter and put the email list and put a couple other ideas and thoughts I have in there too. So I'm looking forward to being part of it.
Perfect. I'm going to quickly scroll through some of the questions that were asked in chat. When are we going to be open? Our dream is to be open by September in Toledo, but it all depends on finding the location and how much, if any renovation has to happen, and the hiring of the right people. We are a community-based organization, and so it just depends on what comes together there in that community. How that answers the how long. It depends on you all, to be perfectly honest. And then how much space? Someone asked that. Currently here, this one has about 1,100 square feet for the kitchen and the dining room. But we also have about a season where you can sit outside all but about 100 days a year because Colorado has a pretty moderate climate, at least Denver does. So we might need more space, especially at the beginning as we're having to do social distancing and those kinds of things. But it all depends on the location. Where it is matters the most. And then we'll get as much space where that is, because it's really important that we have access to people who have means, that love the mission and want to taste the food and support it, as well as easy access for those who are experiencing challenges to get to the space. And then I think, was there another one? How much space? Let me just look real quick. Oh, someone asked about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We are currently in Denver. We are just lunch. We're extended lunch, so we're 10:30 to 2:30. And then we use the evenings in non-COVID times. We use the evenings to do partnership building. So fundraising events, we let the space be available to people who couldn't afford to necessarily rent a space. We have fundraising events in the evening, nonprofits who want to use our kitchen or that want to have good food and have an event. We can give it to them. If they're mission aligned, we can give it to them at a much less rate, those kinds of things that we do. And then we discovered that for this location, people didn't need breakfast where we are. Now, all of this can be on the table in terms of what we would need to have there. We're not tied to this idea of just being a lunch restaurant. It's more what are the needs in the community, and then how do we also have the staff and the volunteer base to be able to support that, because we currently only have about 3 or 4 people that are working in the kitchen, and of the 15 that are working back there, the rest of them are volunteers. And of course, when we started, it was just Brad and Libby Berkey. So now we have a bigger team, but we also need to have that in there. How many meals in a single day? Again, lunch only. Currently, we're serving between 70 and 80 meals a day, which is a lot considering that we only have about 15 seats right now. Yeah, I think that answers all the ones that are in there. Any other questions that someone would like to jump in and ask?
This is a question for Steve or Sam. Define uptown.
Uptown generally is from Michigan out to, say, Collingwood, from the river, you know, moving out from the river, and then, you know, Monroe Street, Jefferson, Madison, Adams, even Jackson. We kind of prefer the Adams Street corridor.
Yeah.
And perhaps Madison, but that would be the general vicinity.
Okay, thanks.
Someone also had asked, is it important that the space has an existing commercial kitchen? Not necessarily. Again, all of the different factors that are involved is that we want the location to be right first and foremost. If there happens to be a commercial kitchen in that, then that helps a lot. It moves us faster, but we can also find partnerships to either get the right equipment, build it out. It'll just affect the timeline depending on what's available there. Melanie, did you have a question? I see you unmuted yourself.
Oh, no, I'm just.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I have a question on whom should we get in touch with ideas or donations or locations? Who locally, Steve, you, or who do we get in touch with?
Currently, Steve in Toledo. You can also reach out directly to me if you have questions, and I can put you in touch with the right person. And I am Brad at soallmayeat.org. It's our website. And then you can also reach out to Erin, who's been serving as our consultant there locally as well. So she's been sort of the boots on the ground. But Erin or Steve or myself would be the first place to start. If you have food-based questions, email Tisha, T-I-S-H-A, at soallmayeat.org, because I don't cook. All I do is get excited about food.
So when you are talking about area farmers and gardeners, does that extend beyond Lucas County? Are we trying to keep things local? Michigan getting involved in that? I know that there's quite a few farmers that I know that live up there.
Absolutely. Anywhere that's within the kind of driving distance of there would be great. And okay. Tisha, it sounds like she had something to say about that.
Yeah, it's you all are so close to Michigan. Honestly, I love how close you are to Detroit because there's a barbecue place up there I love. But yeah, I would love to work with any local community farmers. The smaller and more diverse farms that we can work with, that we're helping more people in the local area is pretty prime. I would love to be doing that, and I can't wait to get to come out and to meet a lot of these farmers and see how we can work together.
Hey, Brad, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. So this is Karen Rainey Wilkins. I'm driving, so you can't see me. And I have a question that I don't want to sound in any way negative because I'm very excited about this whole concept. And those of you who know me, I'm an optimist at heart. But is there someone that could share what perhaps some of the biggest challenges were for you getting things off the ground in Denver that you, or maybe even what you might have picked up on in Toledo, if there were any potential minefields that we should just be aware of?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually let Brad and Libby Berkey, the founders, start with that, and then I'll tell you some of the challenges as we've grown the organization, and then the things that I've seen in Toledo that could be potentially. Great question, but we'll start with the Berkeys. Go for it.
So I would say one of our biggest challenges in the beginning was that we were creating this idea from scratch. No one that we knew had done a nonprofit community cafe like this. We had been to one in Salt Lake City that was kind of close to it, but not similar. What we found was that you know, every restaurateur we talked to said we needed, you know, close to $100,000 at the time. This was, you know, almost 18 years ago when we first started dreaming of this idea. And we had no way to raise $100,000. So we did it on a shoestring budget. We did it with our life savings that we took out of our IRAs and our 401ks. That was a real limitation for us. I mean, we had a hard time really putting together a commercial kitchen that passed as a restaurant, and we had a hard time. We didn't get a contractor. We didn't get, you know, someone who knew what they were doing, building out a kitchen. When we took that space, there was not a commercial kitchen there. So we tried our best to read Denver code and to do all the things that we needed to do in order to create a restaurant space. But like Chris, the board of SAME said, you know, those relationships with city and county government are really important. And I think that's one thing that we definitely learned was that more money certainly would have helped us. It would have opened a lot more doors. We could have given some of that responsibility over to someone who knew what they were doing. And, you know, having those relationships with the city and county so that we didn't have to jump through so many of those hoops or come across so much red tape. There were a lot of times we were like, oh, wait, I didn't know that we needed coving on the bottom of the floor. It didn't say that in this manual. It said it in this code. And so there were some hiccups there. And I think that was probably the majority of it for us was money and then the expertise to build out the kitchen.
And not having an existing large network of people, farmers, places that we could go to source equipment or anything like that ahead of time. We were just kind of going on the fly. So having those relationships and those resources ahead of time are a huge bonus.
Thank you, Berkey's. And I think a couple of the big things that I have a lot of experience in the nonprofit world and even in the founding of nonprofits. And one of the weird big things that happens is you almost have to be independently wealthy to start a nonprofit. Now I know the Berkeys were not independently wealthy, but they had enough that they could stop their working as hard as their current jobs. One of you took time off from your work, and they had life savings to put into it. And one of the things that I was interested in doing when I took over was, I don't come from wealth either. And so I wanted to build the system that we could potentially bridge that gap so people with passion can make it happen rather than just people with money. And so that's why I've been fundraising like crazy to be able to make sure we have a pot of money to put towards this. We also have a proven model, which is a big deal because Brad and Libby had an idea, but it wasn't a proven model yet. And now it's been proven for 14 years. So that helps bridge it. And then with those partnerships with farms and gardens, so you're not spending an arm and a leg getting organic produce. And then existing partnerships as we've talked about. So I think those are some of them. And then the other thing I did want to mention is with Letitia being a part of this, she has now 30 plus years of experience as a chef in kitchens. And she has such a good relationship with our local, like our health inspectors, where she'll call and say, we're thinking about doing this. And oh, what about a food truck? What would we need on a food truck? And those kinds of things. We have an A+ rating with them. And so we now have expertise in-house to make that happen. And so we have founder expertise. We have myself and Tisha that are coming to be a part of this. And then we have this massive, amazing network of people that are local in Toledo to help make it happen. As far as challenges in Toledo, I don't see specific challenges there. I actually see a lot of opportunities because it takes a whole community to support the mission of a SAME Café. And so I get approached at least 1 to 5 times a month from different groups saying, we want a SAME Café in our community. And usually it's one conversation and I say, great, go build a network, go build some people locally, and then we'll talk. And the only people who took us that seriously was Steve and Aaron and Mitch. And so there's a reason why we're going to Toledo is because there's this incredible groundswell of support from Toledo. And we have a couple others that are sort of online to do this, but we had a grid of 5 things we were looking for in a local community. And Toledo had 4 of the 5 and was willing to work with us on that 5th one. So it is restaurant expertise. It's farms and gardens who are willing to at least verbally support and then eventually support with produce. It is donors and people who are willing to put money on the table. It is volunteers and groups who are willing to give their time. And then the 5th one that they're willing to work with us on is the location. Because the location really matters. It can't only be a place where only the wealthy go, but it also can't just be shoved off in a corner where all the folks that are experiencing challenges are. It needs to be in that kind of bridge between the two. And so I feel very hopeful that we will have challenges certainly, but not as many as you might think, considering the founding 14 years ago versus replicating now. Does that answer your question, Kathy? Was it Kathy?
It's Karen.
Karen, I'm so sorry, Karen, yes.
No, it is excellent. Excellent answers. Very exciting. Thank you.
I'm excited too.
I have a question about, typically, is it a mix of people that come and eat at the restaurant? Is that what you want it to be? I'm assuming you do, but what's the demographics that come into?
That's a great question. So we currently, well, I'm going to talk pre-COVID. Since Brad and Libby's era, all the way until now, we have about 80% of our guests that are in extreme need. And we like it that way. So it's mostly people that are in extreme need, that are experiencing challenges, homelessness, and are living under the poverty line. And then we have about 20% that are not in extreme need, but some of those are even like teachers and artists and students that may be food insecure. So they're not paying a lot of money, but they're there. And then we have those donors that are kind of paying that extra. And the reason that matters, I would feel uncomfortable if there was any more than 60%, if there was any less than 60% of people that were in need in our restaurant, only because two big things. One is our mission is to serve people who are in need. You know, our mission is to create community, and we want others in there. But the other one is, if you think about it, if you're food insecure, you're eating there every day because you don't have other access to food. But if you have means, you're eating there maybe once a week, maybe once a month. And so even if it's just two people, this person's here 6 days a week, this person's here once a month. So we would expect that even if it's 50-50, we're gonna have more people every day eating it that are in need. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. Great questions. Who has other questions?
Can I, real quickly, I'm curious, what was the response as it evolved in Denver from the other, like the restaurant community out there? I mean, other restaurateurs, owners, how is it received, and if that evolved? I mean, I'm mindful of the fact that it started there, right? So the response at the beginning versus now might be different, but can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk a little bit about the beginning.
Yeah.
Where we're located on Colfax, we were in I should say, a very transitional neighborhood. It's definitely a little bit more developed now. So our neighbors were a tattoo parlor, a marijuana store, a bar, and a karate studio. Those were our original neighbors. And now it's a high-end cake shop and a high-end hair salon and medical marijuana is across the street still. And now we have this very fancy taco shop and kind of bar hangout on the corner that used to be a 24-hour diner. But when we first started, we did let our neighbors know that we were coming in and that this is what we were going to do. We are catty corner from one of the longest standing kind of
these people
in Denver, and we went to them and just said, hey, you know, we're opening a restaurant here, this is what our idea is. We were met with awesome support. Like, those restaurateurs were excited. One of them did ask us to not serve breakfast because they were a breakfast place and they didn't want the competition, and we of course honored that. And we actually knew that the folks that we were wanting to help were people who normally had breakfast and dinner provided by wherever they were staying. So maybe they had access to a shelter, or they were couch serving with friends, and they didn't really have to be, they weren't in a place during the day. They were kind of out and about doing the things that needed to be done, like going to the food stamps office or trying to get a job. And so they needed access to lunch, really. They didn't need breakfast or dinner as much. So that's kind of why we focused on lunch. We were going to be breakfast and lunch before we talked to that other restaurant. We had lots of restaurateurs from the beginning sign on. We had tons of folks in the industry sign up with us to volunteer. We had lots of support from the restaurant industry. We would get lots of times someone would call and say, hey, Cisco just delivered our food order for this week and they brought us the wrong pallet of tomatoes, and they say we can just have them, they're not going to take them back. Can we bring them to you because they're not the kind we use? So we created a lot of those sort of relationships with restaurants.
family members.
Yeah, very, very little pushback from restaurateurs. They were excited about us coming in.
Which is
and I can tag on to what's going on now with our relationships with restaurateurs. So before I came on to SAME, I had been a chef at some really great restaurants in the Denver area and a part of some really great organizations doing philanthropic work to help nonprofits raise funds at their yearly galas and events and things like that. So when I came on, I had a lot of connections, which has been super helpful with number one, for our galas. We started doing a gala Brad's first year here, and being able to reach out to our partners in the community that, number one, loved our mission, loved that we were a farm to table restaurant long before that term became cool, loved that we were zero waste, and loved the quality of food that we were producing. So when they were asked to show up and make a dish, they all wanted to be there. They all wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to help those that are experiencing food insecurity have access to meals. And that really grew into our second gala and was growing into our third gala before COVID shut it down. During the time of COVID, these relationships with all the restaurants and farms that we have been building really helped us in the way of, if their restaurant had to close, they would call us and say, hey, we want this to go to a great place. Or our restaurant is closing. Would you like these dishes? Would you like these pans? The Hyatt downtown Denver, they actually had to close their buffet where people could come in and they would get the fancy Christmas meals and things like that. And they had $10,000 worth of meat frozen that they needed to find a home for. And they called us. The gentleman's wife had been volunteering with us, and he's like, I want this to go to a great place. And we got lamb and lobster and shrimp and just duck, all of these incredible items that would typically be so far out of our food budget. And they just really loved what we do and the quality of food that we produce, that they wanted it to go and to be used to cook delicious meals for folks that needed it.
Yeah, it's been interesting because I think most restaurants, people don't get into the restaurant industry to get rich. And so most people are mission-based in the restaurant industry, and they love what we're doing because it's what they would love to do if they could, but they don't necessarily have the ability to. And so that's been my experience as well. Massive generosity. There are a couple of questions in the chat that I want to answer.
Let me just speak briefly to that for here in Toledo so far. One of the first two people I spoke to about SAME Café in Toledo was PK at Balance Pennies and Grill, and he didn't even let me finish before he was exploding with his excitement about the possibilities and what a perfect fit it is for Toledo. Alicia Wagner has been the same way, Kristen Kaiser. There are others that we've already been talking with along this way, and they've all been extremely supportive. Like Alicia is not here tonight. She's told me the last 2 days in a row, make sure I get to see the recording of this and remember that I'm in and I want to help. So that's been our experience just on the front end of all this before things start moving forward, in an actual location. I expect that our experience here in Toledo will be similar to what they've had in Denver.
Yeah,
it's just who we are.
PK even messaged me privately just now while we were on this call to say, I've talked to Steve, which I of course knew, and he's like, I've talked to Steve and we're interested in helping. So there were two questions I wanted to answer from the chat. One was they said about a bulletin board, and I wanted to share, it's a little bit dark in here, so I apologize in advance, but we have our community board back here. And one of the reasons I want to give you the idea behind this, because everything that we do in this place has some reasoning behind it. This is for different options for people that might need housing or shoes or clothes or transportation. It's resources. It's our resource wall. And we put it here right next to the bathroom, sort of like you might see at Starbucks, where there's a community bulletin board. We want to have people give them a quiet place where they can find resources without having to come up and say, hey, I'm poor, I need help. But they can go find those resources on their own if they want to. Or of course, we are more than thrilled to talk to someone who wants to share that with us, but we don't want to make them have to come and talk to us about it. So we have a place for the resources right there. The second question is someone asked if we have the ability to train guests on how to cook and run and be a part of the restaurant for future employment, there are 2 programs that I did not mention yet. One is the food truck program, which Tisha mentioned. We might eventually get to a food truck in Toledo, but the more exciting one is that will happen right away it's called Cook to Work. And it's based on the idea that we were having regular guests coming in every day and volunteering for their meal, and they're getting all the entry-level experience that they need to work at a restaurant or just to have job experience. And they were getting jobs based on that. So this has been going since Brad and Libby's days for years. And so we formalized it and we call it Cook to Work. And basically the way it works is we have every guest who comes in is invited to join Cook to Work, everyone who's volunteering. And all it means is you put your name on this sheet of paper. And when you come in, we train you in these things. And then as you get observed doing them, you get it checked off. And then the second phase, you have to schedule with us. So you have to say, I'm going to be there on Tuesday at 10 a.m. And then you have to show up. And so we're starting to move people from the idea of just like walking in to a little bit more stability and structure. And then we do a deeper version of all of the tasks. And then the third one is, the third phase is where we help with resume writing, practice interviews, and then we help get jobs in the community. And so what's been really cool is we launched it in 2019 and immediately had, I think, a couple of dozen people who signed up for it right away. And then COVID, of course, affected it negatively because we couldn't bring folks in to train them. But that is something that is baked into our DNA in terms of both training people to get out there into the community in meaningful ways, while also, the way I say it is that at SAME Café, everything is an invitation to a better life. So you don't have to eat all of your fruits and vegetables, but if you want seconds, that's all you're gonna get seconds of, is the like fruits and vegetable centered things. You can come and just kind of be a grump in the corner if you want to, but if you want to, you can join this beautiful community of people who are willing to be a part of your life. You can come and just volunteer, but if you really want to, you can also get job training while you're doing that. So we just offer ourselves as an invitation to something better if you want it.
Can I jump in on this?
Please do.
I'm Sandra Irvine. I'm with Catholic Charities, and we have a training program called the Opportunity Kitchen. We've already graduated 2 cohorts. It's 10 weeks, 18 classes. We're starting our next one February 1st. It's exactly what you're talking about. And I called Aaron up, so excited when I found out about it. And we would love to collaborate with our people. They get a Surf Safe certification. They go through an entire culinary program over 2.5 months. We start our next one. We graduated 2 cohorts, and again with COVID, that made us quiet. But we have in our 12 people coming in, 5 homeless, disabled veterans, trauma. So we specialize in exactly what you're talking about. We would love to collaborate with you and volunteer and whatever we can do, because we have really worked hard to get this up and running. So we don't, have lookalike programs. We'd love to collaborate.
Thank you.
Would you mind putting your email and information in the chat?
Yes, sure.
Tisha will reach out to you right now. But I also wanted to say what's been interesting. We have 2 other programs that are similar to what you're describing here in Denver. And what's cool is that we become a feeder either into employment or into one of those more deep culinary programs, because we can't offer that. Like what you just described, that's much deeper than we could offer. But we help people like that are experiencing homelessness have that first bit of success to move into something like that, and then can go into one of those programs. I love it.
We also follow our people for 9 months.
That's awesome.
Because of recidivism. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah.
We've also had a number of folks that have done a similar program to yours. And the part that's been missing is, and I'm not sure what it's like at your facility, but they don't really have the chance to work and engage with lots of different people in here, because our volunteers change every day, different walk-ins every day. They have this huge opportunity to work with a much larger group of folks, and a much larger group of folks that are also experiencing trauma. So what they get to learn in part 3 of their training is really how to manage their trauma and their emotions, and how they can really thrive in a work environment. As I'm sure you know, when you're coming from a place of extreme hardship, specifically living on the streets and everything that goes along with that, you can become escalated quite quickly. And so we want to make sure that we're giving people all of the tools and support that they need to be able to thrive in a work environment, a restaurant work environment that is also very stressful and be able to maintain for the long haul.
And by the way, we will be thrilled to work with you to dovetail whatever we're doing that fits perfectly with whatever you're doing. There's no need to replicate anything. If you're already doing it, we'll send them to you. And if it's something that we can add to, then we are more than thrilled to. Thank you for your generosity. Someone asked about the tokens in the chat. So we have these little token things, and this is our only advertising that we do is these little things. So we use them in several ways. For one, if someone decides to stay long after their volunteer shift, just to help us out, we're like, here, take a token and you can bring it back for a free meal whenever you want to, or a couple free meals, depending on how long they stay. We also use it if we have an overabundance of people who need to volunteer on the spot for their meal. We say, actually, the ones that we know well will say, will you become an ambassador for SAME Café as your service to this mission? Give them a couple of tokens and they go give it to somebody who's experiencing challenges and they bring that back in. And then the third way is for people that have means, we ask for like about a $12 donation for this if you can. And then you put this in your pocket and you carry it around and you hand it out to someone experiencing challenges that would benefit from the mission. And what I love about it is that if you've paid $12 for this thing and it's sitting in your pocket, you're going to be looking for people experiencing homelessness. And it's sneaky, but I'll tell you, one of the beautiful things about it is that we're trying to make homelessness visible. Because a lot of the big challenges with homelessness is that we just walk right by them and don't see them. But if you have something to give away and a conversation to have with somebody, then it actually starts to engage people outside of the cafe in conversation across the socio-political or the socioeconomic spectrum. So yes, we still have that. We'll plan on doing that in Toledo as well. Steve?
The last time I was in Denver, Aaron and I were meeting with Brad and Tisha and others, and I had some of the tokens with me. I was walking up the 16th Street Mall the day I was leaving, and I ran into this guy who had the best panhandling sign I've ever seen. It said, "We'll kidnap your boss for spare change." It was brilliant. I loved it. Anyway, I got involved in a conversation with this guy, and he didn't know anything about SAME Café, and I was able to introduce it to him by giving him a token that he would be able to, if he chose to, walk up the street and use to get a meal, get his first introduction to the cafe. It's a really great program.
All right, any other questions? I do want to just say we will have a recording of this. Don't feel like you have to stay if you need to run. It's not a big deal. We can also send this recording out. I know some people feel weird about dropping off, but you can if you need to. But we're also here till the bitter end. So we will be here until every last person has their questions answered. Any other questions that you might have for anyone?
I have one quick question. I was wondering if you have a dedicated employee or volunteer who coordinates all the volunteers.
Yes, so that's a great question. That coordinating volunteers is one of the biggest things. So we currently do have our cafe director who is, she coordinates the volunteers. Libby's laughing, so I know she has something to say about this. Go for it.
That was our very first hire outside of Brad and I was a volunteer coordinator because it is a full-time job in order to make sure that and we always wanted it to be that the person had something authentic to do. I wasn't their mom. I wasn't giving them a chore in order for them to eat. Here was a real task that needed to be done in the restaurant. And can you help us with this? So it was not necessarily like, okay, I'm done eating. What's my job now? It's, hey, this is what we need here. Can you do this job for us? And that required full-time attention. And so that was the very first real hire we made outside of ourselves.
And we still have that on job descriptions, a couple of job descriptions now, actually. So yes, and then along those lines, she made a really good point. We don't want to just give somebody a task. That's not at all what we're about. We believe that every single human who walks through the doors or is engaged in this, like you all are, is a contributor to making this mission work. And so whether you're experiencing homelessness or you're a multimillionaire, both of you talk to me because we're going to put you to work in some way, either with your pocketbook or your time, to be able to make this mission genuinely happen. And it needs to be real work. It needs to be something that's actually advancing the mission. Not just go wipe that table for the 47th time today. Although during COVID, that's a real job. But pre-COVID, it was not there wasn't just that. You know, we were like, we need you to do real things. learn how to chop vegetables and all that.
Another really big thing with the volunteer coordinator. So right now, Teresa, our cafe director, she oversees that program. And we have a service member. So it's similar to AmeriCorps, but it's called Urban Servant Corps. And we pay a fee to have someone that is in that program come and work with us full time for a year. So her name is Gabby. She's actually taken on a lot of the data entry and volunteer relations. Volunteer, no matter where you're at on the socioeconomic ladder, are essential to nonprofits. They are just as essential as the funding that you're getting in. We have so many wonderful core volunteers that actually started during the time of COVID because they wanted to be able to give back. And without our volunteer management, volunteer acknowledgement, doing things that let them know that they are special and that they're included, we would lose that type of donor. So we really look at our volunteers as another part of our fundraising, but we're fundraising with your time instead of just with dollars.
And to give you an idea, we actually have 5 levels of volunteerism here at this cafe, and we hope that some version of that would happen there. The first is that you can walk in and exchange 1 task for a meal. The second is you can pre-schedule a volunteer shift that's anywhere from 1 to 3 hours long. So those can be someone experiencing challenges or homelessness that wants to sign up for one, or someone that just has extra time and wants to sign up. The third level, and Tisha mentioned this, is a core volunteer. And so that's someone who adopts one of those shifts per week. So you're here every Monday morning from this period time to this time, and it allows us to train some of the deeper skills that we would need in that position. Or you can learn how to run the front counter, you can learn how to run the pizza station, you can learn how to make cookies, all that kind of stuff. Those become offsets to our full-time employees. So it means we're not having to pay for that. That's someone who's giving their time for that. Then we also have interns from our local high schools and colleges. And if any of you have clicked on the website, that was built by a high school intern who's amazing and updates regularly from that. Now he's in college at the Colorado School of Mines, but he still is a contract worker where I shoot him something. I'm like, Luis, I need you to update this. And he does it within a few minutes. He's great. He built the Toledo one that I just sent you a link to. And then the kind of highest investment volunteer is those service members that Tisha talked about. So we currently have 4 through different programs. There's a couple of them that are retired, one program that is folks that are retired that are giving extra time. We have some that are doing a gap year post-college that are giving time, and they're here for 40 hours a week for about 11 months. And so we just working with those local versions of whatever that is really helpful, because those are full-time equivalents that we don't have to pay at that point, which is a huge budget relief for us.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Newt, although my picture says Joey, my wife. I am the original founder of the Helping Hands of St. Louis Soup Kitchen, the Toledo Northwest Ohio Food Bank, and I just finished a 11-year stint at Salem Lutheran Church doing just pancakes. And I like the idea because I've been thinking about this for a long time. But part of my concern is, location is important, but I haven't heard anybody mention about how do we serve the South End, the North End, and East Toledo that are truly places that need something to be done other than the Helping Hands of St. Louis. So in Denver, has that expanded to other parts of the community, or is it just location where they're at?
That's our food truck. So that was why we really mobilized our food truck a couple of years ago. Denver is a pretty large city. We have a number of food deserts around the city. And then with a lot of there's been a lot of new businesses coming into Denver. So it's definitely gentrified a lot. So we're finding folks who are in need of services don't really have the access to get where we are. And that was really the catalyst for starting the food truck, was to be able to partner with different agencies to go into neighborhoods where people are needing access to food. And that has been huge. And Joey, I've been doing a lot of research on Toledo, and that is food insecurity is one of the biggest things that I've noticed that folks in Toledo have been experiencing. And a lot of them aren't just centrally located to the downtown area. And I know Brad mentioned maybe in the future we would like to look at doing a food truck in Toledo as well. We'll probably start with the brick and mortar so that people can get used to our model and what we do and how we function. But yeah, with everything changing in cities, people that are needing access to services are typically getting pushed further and further out.
And I also wanted to make a quick comment. We're weird because we serve people food, but our mission is to create community. Yep. And so we are creating community, which needs to sort of happen in a brick and mortar space or in a location. Our mission is to create community, and we use food and the restaurant to do it. And so it's most important that we have that hub. And then we're also happy to do outreach, but we really want to draw people into a certain community space because that's our mission. And
when I talk to people about Just Pancakes, I tell them Just Pancakes isn't about feeding people. It's about being with people.
That's exactly it. Yes. And so we're thrilled to, if we do a food truck, the places that we found the most success with our food truck. Now, of course, COVID ruined it because all the gatherings stopped around the city, so we couldn't use it. But with the food truck, we found the most success in the places where we could go back every week to the same place. So then people could gather there and get to know each other in those locations, which is how we really want to do it. Because we're not just here to relieve hunger. We're here to create community and give people opportunities for success down the road as well. But great questions. I think your expertise related to where the food need is would be great. So you should talk to Steve about joining the board so that you can have your voice heard.
Well, I got a couple other things in the fire. Tomorrow morning at 10:30, I'm headed over to St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Oregon, Ohio. And they've called me up and they want to try to do some simple soups every other Saturday. So I'm going over there to talk with them about how that can be and, you know, where the foundation of something like that could grow. But this idea has been in my head a long time. In the Opportunity Kitchen, I sit down and talk to those people and they said, hey, Newt, you know, why don't you come and join us? Well, when you've got a little 8-year-old granddaughter in your life you have custody of, things change, you know, you got to slow down. But anyway, I plan on hanging with you guys because I think it's a great idea. And I think that in the community at large, with a lot of hurt that happens in people's lives, it's something that can change, but it takes time. And we have a lot of time right now, but I'm definitely 100% in on this deal. But I also have to go to work. I have a part-time job. So I'm going to bow out, but I'll keep in touch with everyone. Thanks and have a good night.
For your input.
Thank you, Joey.
All right. All right, other questions? Like I said, I'm not going to hang up. I'm here until the very last person hangs up. So if you're still on, I assume you have a question.
So Brad, I have a question for you. Do you follow Massimo Bottura at all?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course we do. In fact, his wife is from Boulder, Colorado, and we have a picture with her in front of this mural because, and I have to tell you this story if you don't mind, because she came in and we love, Massimo Bottura is considered widely the best chef in the world, if you're not familiar. His wife came in and ate, and I thought she was gonna lick her bowl clean because it was so good. And I was like, if you're the wife of Massimo Bottura, you don't have to eat anything you don't want to eat. And
that's a high compliment.
Exactly. And I was like, Tisha, did you see that? She ate everything on her plate. Look, she's getting the picture because we're so proud of it. The woman in the white there in the middle is her.
What an honor.
Yeah. So
it was so cool. It was probably one of my most nervous days cooking. I remember the first chef's table I ever watched, and Massimo was talking about her and his love for her and how it really goes into his food. And we were just at a great point in harvest season, so I had the most amazing Colorado ingredients to work with. And it was definitely one for the books to get to sit down and talk to her and do all of that. But yeah, he had been thinking about bringing a refectorium here, and they were wanting to partner with us to possibly run the restaurant during the day as a SAME Cafe and then do the refectorium in the evening.
They really are the hallmark, I think, and we've learned from them of serving with dignity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
phenomenal. So I have to tell another quick story, if you don't mind. It's about Alice Waters. So she was speaking, and Alice Waters, if you're not familiar with Farm to Table, incredible, like amazing chef. And she was speaking at an event here that's and she went to grab the picture. I think Tisha went to grab the picture. So she was speaking, and Tisha has had has loved her for years. And she stopped speaking and then went away to do an interview. So I went and chased her down, and I was like, I don't care if NPR wants to talk to you. You're going to meet this woman because she's doing great things. And so they got to meet, and Alice got to hear briefly about what we're doing here at SAME Café as well. And so it was fun because we've been chasing down these great chefs and introducing them to that great chef that's sitting in our basement right now.
She took my hands and she held them to her chest as we were talking, and she started getting tears in her eyes hearing about the mission. Then I started crying because it's like, here's Alice Waters, who's doing so much good in California and really like taken her career to a way that she can make healthy food accessible to so many folks that wouldn't typically have it. And yeah, that was another one for the books. And Brad, thank you for dragging me through that crowd and making sure that happened because I was too nervous.
I think if Alice Waters grabbed my hands, I would faint.
I felt like it.
I thought Tisha was going to be honest. All right, other questions from the group?
Well, will the Toledo SAME Cafe follow the same kind of menu where there's a pizza and a salad and the lemon cookie?
So that's a great question. Our menu is completely as long as there's variable, if there's choice on the menu, it's healthy food at the center of it, and it changes regularly, then we're not obsessed about what the actual ingredients are. Soup, salad, and pizza is what Brad and Libby were doing. If you want to share why you did that here in 2 seconds. But, and we actually on our food truck had healthy grain bowls. So we didn't even use the soup, salad, pizza thing. And we want whatever we're doing in each community to reflect the local community flavors of whoever is there in that community, especially if there are like ethnic groups or immigrant groups that can help inform our flavor profile. We want that to be the case rather than us say it's soup, salad, pizza, and this is what you get. And Brad and Libby, do you want to talk briefly about why you did soup, salad, and pizza?
Yeah, it was the easiest thing that we could do in the space that we got. When we first took that space, it was 600 square feet, and the city and county did not allow us to have a hood. We had to use all electric appliances because the hood had to go through the 3 stories above us. There's apartments in this particular building in Denver above us, and we would have had to have begged the hood straight up 3 stories or out the back brick wall, and we didn't have the funds to install a $100,000 hood. And so we did a convection oven, an electric convection oven. And what we thought we could put in an electric convection oven that we could do every day was pizza. So Brad came up with, we had our original pizza dough, and we knew that we could change the flavors every day. We'd had a couple of options of pizza, a couple of options of salad. We could keep those cold, we could make them easily. And we knew that soup was great. Summertime, we served cold soups. I hope that SAME Café Toledo serves lemon cookies.
It will have, oh yeah, the cookie, you mentioned the cookie, it will have the cookie. So I'll tell you a brief story. The cookie, how many of you, raise your hands if you've had the cookie at SAME Café? A few of you have. So they're a lemon cookie that is the best cookie you've ever had. And it's funny because I'm gonna tell you 2 stories about it. One is when I started, it was in my contract that I could never sell or give away that recipe. Because it is SAME Café's, and it's actually, Libby, it's your family's recipe, right? Yeah. So it's definitely a part of the DNA here. So we'll always have the lemon cookie for sure. But the other interesting thing is we have this happen regularly where someone will come up and say, that cookie was so good, can I get another one? And we say, yes, you can have another one. You just have to come back tomorrow for it. Because we get 1 cookie per day per guest, no matter what. And they'll say, well, I want to give extra money for it. And we're like, we would love to have your money to keep this mission going, but you get 1 cookie per day per guest, regardless of what you give. And while that's funny, most people who understand the mission get it immediately, and they just kind of like click. But what's amazing is every time I've ever had that conversation with a guest who's used to spending money to get more calories, they get it, and then there'll be someone that's listening to that conversation that will come up to me afterwards and say, thank you so much for not treating them differently because they have money. I'm experiencing homelessness, and I would have felt bad if he could get another cookie and I couldn't. And so one of the things that matters is that every single person, we stand for So All May Eat, and everybody gets treated the same in here. So no matter what you're giving, everyone's treated exactly the same in here. And Steve, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna throttle you because he's over there saying that he got a second cookie.
Who gave you a second cookie, Steve?
He lied to somebody.
I have no idea who it was, but they were my favorite person.
Did you steal it?
No. I asked and they gave it to me.
They didn't know that he had had a first cookie is what happened. And he went up and just took advantage of the situation and got a second one without them knowing. But it is important that everyone is treated the same here. And that's the thing that is super key about that cookie. And that cookie is where it shows up the most often is, I want more of those cookies, but we wouldn't give it to you no matter what. Or unless you're Steve.
Truth is, I didn't know you were limited to one cookie. And I asked for one not knowing that, and somebody gave me one. That's all I'm saying.
He didn't ask for another one. He asked for one, and they just gave it to him thinking that. Because the staff knows better than that. Because I was about to get names and go chase somebody down, Steve, if someone gave it to you.
So they knew I had been there because I asked for another one. So anyway, that is my one claim to I'm the only person ever to get a second Same Cafe in the same visit.
Lucky you.
Keep going, Steve. Someone's gonna get in trouble.
I would even tell Brad when he came that he couldn't have a second cookie. Brad Rubendale, when he came to visit, he would say, "Oh, can I have a second cookie?" And I'd say, "No." He's like, "But I'm the new executive director." I'm like, "I don't care. It's one cookie. I only eat one cookie. Everybody only eats one cookie."
To this day, I hold myself to one cookie. And usually I even make that joke of like, I'm the executive director and I only get one cookie. You think you're going to get another one? No.
How many patrons a day do you have? How many patrons a day?
Great question. We are usually we're lunch only from 10:30 to 2:30, and we have anywhere from 60 to 80 people a day right now. And then in the summers, it's usually more than that. So between 80 to 110. Other questions that people have. We'll stop talking about cookies, but there will be an inquisition tomorrow. I'm going to find out who gave Steve that damn cookie.
How many employees are on staff for the shifts? And is it one shift or is it two?
It's one shift, and that's one of the things that makes it easy right now with being Just Lunch is that it's just one shift for the whole day. Now, if we did decide to do dinner or breakfast, we probably have to do more than one shift. But we usually have about, COVID again has messed this up. We now have like 4 people a shift that are in there. But there were times when it was just 2, 3 maybe per shift, and the rest are all volunteers. So you'll see the kitchen is full, but it's mostly volunteers that are in there. And our plan with Toledo for the first round is that we'll have 2 key staff and then maybe 1 or 2 hourly staff. So we'll need a site director. By the way, these are positions that are unfilled. So if you know the right people, let's talk. We need the location first and then we're hiring staff. But a site director, and that person would be responsible for overseeing the cafe, the management of the cafe, the hiring and the firing and all the stuff that goes on here. They would also be responsible for the volunteer management at first, and then a portion of the fundraising. So they need to be out there and making sure that they're in the community, gaining that support locally, because I'll only be able to visit a few times a year. I can't be there all the time. Then we'll have the other skilled staff or key staff would be a chef. So there'll be an executive chef who's over the entire back of the house. So kind of think front of house, back of house, and that those are the 2 key positions. And then, we can hire hourly folks as much as possible underneath it, but it would be those 2 key staff that are kind of running the restaurant locally.
So how many volunteers are back there? I'm just trying to get an idea how many people you have, making it happen.
Yeah, Tisha, what's the latest on our local in terms of positions? Isn't it like 7 positions?
Right now we have to socially distance in the cafe, so there always has to be 6 feet between everyone. But we've also increased our positions. So we have space for 10 people every single day. And every day, 3 to 4 of those are a paid staff member. So every day we'll have a manager on duty, someone who's cooking, and someone who can oversee the volunteer coordination and host. So we have to have an employee that can be outside, greet everybody when they're coming in, do a health check. Any of the volunteers, we actually have to take their temperature, document it, get all of that keyed in. Non-COVID times, there would be some days just at our prep table alone, we would have 6 people volunteering. So pre-COVID, we could have a lot more people in than what we can currently do.
And I also wanted to talk briefly about the fact that we want to make sure that we're paying a living wage for our staff that are here. We have limited staff, but we want everyone to make sure that they're making what they're worth as much as possible. Nonprofits are notorious for, having their staff live in poverty while serving people in poverty. And we don't want that to be the case as much as possible. So we have an internal policy that we pay at the 50th percentile or more of whatever the local wages are for that position. So at least 50th percentile. And then we also offer benefits for anyone who's working 25 hours or more with an 80-20 split for health benefits.
Wow.
Because it's really important for me, I come from a background of poverty myself, and it's really important for me to not expect that the people who are working here are living in poverty while serving people in poverty. And so we've been working for the last 3 or 4 years to make sure, because Brad and Libby, God bless them, they were living on pauper's wages while they were running this place because they were the founders and it was their passion. And I was like, well, we're going to do this, but we're going to make sure that each position is paid what it's worth. And so our cafe manager our cafe director makes more than Libby did when she was there. I'm sorry, Libby. I wish that I could employ you too now. But I'm just glad that we're now serving, people are being paid what they're worth and we are able to provide benefits.
So Brad, you talked about the delicious food, but you didn't mention that it was Instagrammable.
Oh, the Instagrammable thing. Okay. Yeah, so this is part of the, yes, there's a picture right there. So one of the things that we're really, that's really vital for us is to make sure that the food gives you a sense of wow when you see it, because it's
cookie.
Exactly. That's an experience that you can go pay for anytime you want to, but we want to make sure that every human who walks in this door has the experience of being wowed, both with the food, what it looks like, and then being wowed what it tastes like, and then third, being wowed that they feel so good after eating it. And so that's one of those experiences that is not available to people who are experiencing challenges most of the time. And in fact, I think one of the most interesting things that happens when I invite someone to SAME Café, the first thing they tell me is, Brad, the food was so good. And I was like, I told you the food was so good, but they're always impressed by it. And then also the thing we hear more often than not right here at this front counter is, wow, when they get their food. This looks beautiful. And that matters to us, that it needs to be, I tell the staff, every plate has to be Instagrammable. Even if they don't pull their phone out and put it on Instagram, it needs to be Instagrammable. And what's also interesting, another side note is every one of our marketing photos that are out there of our food, which you've seen a few in the marketing for this and all that was literally just the menu of the day. And they went up and got the food, took a picture of it, and that became our marketing materials. We don't have food photographers who are coming in to make it look beautiful. That's just what we served that day. Other questions, thoughts, concerns, words of wisdom? Steve, SAME Café is so completely good, it's shocking. I agree. I get to steward this mission that was invented beyond my time, so. And I actually don't have any skills. That's what's so fascinating to me, is that I have no skills whatsoever except excitement, because I don't cook. I don't do anything except just get people excited about it, but it is so uniquely good. It is the best place. In fact, I've always said, this is the most magical place on earth. It's better than Disney. Disney's got nothing on us. Because it's the only place I know where everyone across the socioeconomic spectrum is treated with dignity as part of a group.
There are a number of people still on this. Unbelievably, over an hour later, we still have 28 people in the Q&A. That's awesome.
We're an hour and a half later. We're an hour and a half later.
Q&A, just Q&A, yeah. So anyway, there are a number of people on the screen who know that it really does take a lot to make me speechless. And I was. John will tell you, when we were there that very first time, I just ended up speechless. Said, this is just so good, I don't even know what to say. And we need one in Toledo. This fits Toledo. So 2.5 years later,
we'll be there. Buckle up.
We are going to be there. So I'm going to do what I used to do when I used to host a group that was called Let's Drink and Talk Religion. I used to be a pastor. It's a long story. Ask me over a beverage and I'll tell you. but I'm going to do what I used to do, which is if you've talked, please be silent. And if you haven't talked, we're going to give some awkward silence for people who have not said anything yet to potentially verbalize their thoughts, questions, comments, concerns. And I don't mind awkward silence, so here we go.
Hey, I'm Monica, and my partner Nick and I are, for one, really excited to. We're involved in like a lot of urban agriculture stuff around here, so of course really excited to donate produce and volunteer as well, and I guess just like see how we can collaborate on various projects in the community, because there really is a lot going on, especially in the uptown area. I'm personally really involved in a group called Food Not Bombs. I don't know if you're like.
Oh yeah.
We've worked with Food Not Bombs here in Colorado. During COVID, they were also bringing a lot of donations by, and then I had some friends that started the Boulder chapter back in the 90s. So
yeah, I figured you'd heard of it, and I was just kind of curious to see like how Food Not Bombs and SAME Café, like if there's a relationship in Denver, if like, yeah, I'm just curious to hear about how you, I guess, work with all kinds of different like activist groups and other projects like that.
Well, we do. So SAME Café, the organization, we do take a stance that,
I'm going to answer this real quick, actually. Okay. Sorry, I am so sorry, Tisha. I wanted to just kind of talk briefly about activism in general as a concept, because it is something that we do have a lot of folks that love what we do and that support it, that are from every background. And so this is actually kind of a key piece of it, is that we are neutral on everything political and religious, but we also welcome every possible political religious perspective in. So I want to tell you my favorite, like quick little anecdote. We have Christian groups that love what we do because we're feeding the poor, like Jesus said. We have Jewish groups that support us because we're doing the mitzvot, the commands. We have atheist groups that love that we're not religious and feeding people. We have like Republicans that are on our board that love that we're like a hand up and not a handout. Like hardcore capitalists that love that we're using capitalism for something good. And I actually spoke with an anarchist couple that was on the patio that said, I love that you're disrupting the capitalist system and all this. And one of the things that I think we don't make a comment on any of these things politically or religiously, but we obviously welcome, if you find value in what's going on at SAME Café, we will do mutual support with that 100% of the time. But the other thing is we don't necessarily make posts saying, oh, by the way, we support what Food Not Bombs is doing, or we support what this activist group is doing, because we do have such a diverse group. And it's one of the only places, in fact, I wanted to share about a story about Tisha. Early on in my time here, it was right after the 2016 election. And we have this delightful conservative Catholic couple that comes in, Trump supporting all the way. And they come in every week. And well, they did before COVID. And they came in every week and they made food in our kitchen. And one time there was a like queer woman of color that was in there, and she brought up immigration, and then suddenly immigration became the topic of conversation. And I'll never forget it, because I think it was Tisha that was in there at the time, and she said, like, just so you know, everyone has different opinions here. We can talk about it, but we can't like try to like solve this problem on the spot. And they had a really thoughtful, intelligent conversation around immigration from very different perspectives. And I love that we're also a place where like different political, religious, activist groups can come together in a non-hostile environment as well. So it's a great question. And sorry, Tisha, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to overtalk you. If you have more to add, go for it.
No, that's okay. You have a great way of phrasing how we manage so many different thoughts and belief systems and religious backgrounds. And we do want to be a space that's welcome to everybody, as long as everybody is being respectful and no one is infringing on anyone's right to be self-actualized and be who they are and feel honor and feel dignity. We are not a place where anyone can come in, even from the most, like, I guess, basic thing of commenting rudely on how someone is dressed. Like, that's just not what our space is about. And we're very clear with boundaries and what, you know, being a community cafe is about, because we are here to serve everybody that comes through that door that can respect everyone else's boundaries. And it's really beautiful. I love what we get to do in that realm.
My background, when I mentioned I did this like group called Let's Drink and Talk Religion, it was fascinating because we tapped into the atheist community here in Denver somehow. This was pre my time at SAME Café, but I would host this group and it would be like atheists and Christians and queer folks and agnostics. Everyone would come together and then we'd talk about things like, what's your stance on abortion? Just because I like some controversy. And it was fascinating because my only rule was you can't try to convince somebody else that your perspective is right. All you can do is say, that's what I believe and these are the reasons why, but you can't like try to make somebody else believe it. And that is one of the key things that has kind of filtered into SAME Café. We can all have our beliefs, we can even share our beliefs, but we can't try to convince you to believe what I believe. We just point at it and say, that's why I believe it.
We've had,
I like that you have all in the name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we've had some really great dinners at the cafe as well. We don't push any political initiatives or anything that might be on the ballot, but we have been partnering with this agency that's, let's see, it was called Make America Dinner Again. And we would, the person who was directing it would invite a certain number of people who maybe were more leftist in their ideals, a certain number of people who might be gearing more towards the right, but it was equal across the board, and everybody sat next to someone who might take a different position. Let's see, this was, one of them was no on 300, so it was the camping.
Tisha, I think her internet is struggling, so sorry, Tish, I'm gonna mute you real quick just because I think your internet's down. So it's called Make America Dinner Again, and it was based on a camping ban here in Colorado. And it was on the ballot, and we had the dinner after the ballot was over. And then we brought people that were across the spectrum of belief on that particular topic into the same room. And it was both the person who put it on the ballot, who was part of the D-Hole, so Denver Homeless Out Loud. She was there, and then we also had all these business folks who were like pro the ban, the camping ban, and they all came together, and it was really cool to see those conversations happen after it was off the ballot, like it had already been defeated. But then there were actually some really cool initiatives that came out of that conversation once it was no longer politically divisive, and then there's some initiatives that have come out to address homelessness in this city. All right, other questions? I call it the internal processor pause, just because some of you are sitting there processing all this information, and we'll let it go for another minute. And if there aren't any, then we'll go ahead and give you an option for getting off. But
Is it 8:16 in Toledo?
These people are hardcore, Tish.
And in Florida.
And in Florida. Everyone besides you and me, it's late there. All right, last call for other questions or comments.
Well, the Opportunity Kitchen's looking forward to working with you closely.
Well, and I thank you so much for being so generous. And like, you know, there can be weird competition among nonprofits, and that is not our heart or stance. And I'm glad to hear that it's not yours, because there's always going to be something that we can do to collaborate. So I'll stop there. The conversation goes on, but not tonight. So we'll let you all get home and have whatever it is that you're going to eat or drink and go to bed. But You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Reach out to us if you're not already on the list, and we'll continue this and get a SAME Cafe open this year.